Hi, I'm Igor Smirnov, and this is a continuation of the video lesson Breaking Stereotypes. Here we discuss the common chess ideas which are not correct objectively. In this video, I'm going to analyze an attack on the H-file. Let me show you what I mean. I'm in the situation like this. Black castled and has a fianchettoed bishop on the g-zone. In such positions, white can play h4, h5 and try to develop an attack on the kingside. Many players think that this plan is very powerful and is nearly winning for white. In fact, quite an opposite situation happens most often. Okay, now let's imagine what will happen in the future. Let's say white played h4, h5, took on the g6 and black recaptured. After that, we will see a position like this. Next, white will transfer the queen on the h-file, and it looks like the white's attack is going smoothly and really white will be winning soon. However, here it's not for black just to remove the rook from the f8, let's say to the e8 or to any other square, and after that, after queen h7 and king f8, nothing really happens. The white's attack is over. Moreover, we can triple the white's heavy pieces on the h-file. Still, white has not enough resources to continue an attack. We can give white, let's say, a knight on the f3, and still white has no attack in continuation. Okay, let's give something else to white, the bishop on the c1. The bishop will be more helpful, but even in this situation, the white's attack is not so much dangerous. Okay, white will play bishop h6, black will take, and then black can easily escape on the e7. Most probably black has some pawns there in the center, and that's why the king may feel pretty comfortable even in the e7 square. Okay, let's try to imagine another situation. White will put the rook in front of his queen. Then it will look like this. Generally, this should be better for white because white can penetrate the black's territory onto the h7 or even h8 squares. Nevertheless, still black has a very simple way how to stop the white's attack. Black just needs to play king f8. After that, the white's move rook h8 doesn't do much. Black can take, or black can play king e7 right now, and still white has no effective continuation of this attack. Okay, I'll show you one more idea. The main defender of the black's king is the bishop g7. That's why white may try to exchange it. In this case, white will play bishop h6. However, it's not dangerous for black. Black only needs to avoid an exchange. He can play bishop h8 or bishop f6, and after that nothing happens for black. If white moves the bishop back, black will do the same. Bishop g7 is just a repetition. White has a nice idea, bishop f8, but nevertheless it doesn't bring any troubles for black because black will simply play bishop f6. Now after queen h6, though white has a lot of pieces around the black's king, but white has no threats at all. Now we can see a quite similar situation, but white has 3 heavy pieces on the h-file. Of course, it strengthens the white's attack, and here, after bishop h6 and bishop h8, really white can win the game. White has the move bishop f8, and it's useful to remember this idea because it's a typical tactic, and in this situation it's winning for white. The key point of this idea is that after bishop f6, white can now play queen h8, and after bishop takes and rook takes, it's mate. That's why white needs to have the rook and the bishop there, because right now the black's king is mated. Now I'd like to make a little overview. In order to develop an attack on the h-file, white needs to spend really a lot of time. White needs to play h4, h5, then take on the g6, then bring all his heavy pieces there on the h file, and even if white makes all these things, after that white has no real attacking ideas. As we already analyzed, after queen h7 and king f8, white has no idea how to continue an attack. Another great thing for black here is that the only black's defender, the only bishop g7, withstands 3 white's heavy pieces on the h file. This gives black great possibilities for a successful counterattack on the center and on the queen side, because black will have much more quantity of the pieces there. Okay, these were some general ideas about this attack, and now let's see some concrete examples. In this position, white played h4. As we already know, this attack is not so powerful as most players think, and that's why if white tries to develop this quick attack, black should counterattack. So he played d5, and let's see what happened after that. White took on the c6, b takes, rook d1, queen c7. It's a typical positional sacrifice for black. If white takes the d5 pawn, black will have a lot of open lines and diagonals and will easily take the pawn back. So white played h5, he's trying to develop his plan. Knight takes e4, knight takes, h takes. Of course, black should recapture by the h-pawn here, and in many similar situations. As we already know, open h-file doesn't give much for white, so you shouldn't worry about it too much. H takes. And now let's take a look at this position more precisely. It looks like white already opened the h file and has good attacking chances there. However, let's think what white can do really in this situation. Let's say white will play bishop h6. Of course, black can very easily protect his position by playing queen e5. And if white takes on the g7, black will recapture by the queen. Moreover, in this position, white has no threats actually, so black can do any move. I will just play bishop e6 for black, just to show you my idea. And after that, white takes on the g7, king takes, and queen h6 check, king f6. And what white can do now? White has no idea, no attacking ideas, while black is threatening rook h8, maybe queen e5, something like this. So I just like to show you that this attack, even if white realizes all his attacking ideas, it still doesn't give anything for white. Perhaps the best thing which white can do in this position is to make a draw by making a checks, queen h4 and queen h6, a perpetual check. Okay, let's go back. In the game, white tried another attacking attempt. He played bishop d4. Of course, black can play e5 here. However, he has better decision. He can play rook d8 using the pin. And in the game, white made a blunder. He played queen c3. And after that, black took rook takes d4 and queen b6, winning material because of the pin. This example is pretty simple, but I just tried to show you that the white's attack is not dangerous for black. Okay, let's take a look at another example. It's black's turn now. White is obviously trying to play g5, h5 and to develop an attack there. In the game, black calmly played g6. It looks like a mistake at the first sight, because we shouldn't move pawns on the side of the board where we are under an attack, and here it looks like it will simplify the white's task, because after h5 white will open the lines quickly. However, as we already know, it's not dangerous for black, so we may not worry about it too much. Now let's see what happened after that. Black played c5, which is of course a correct decision. As I told you earlier, white has to spend a lot of moves in order to develop that attack on the Kingside using the H file. That's why, of course, it makes sense for Black to use this time to start a counterattack. Very often your counterattack will be much faster. G5, bishop G7, queen H4. White did all his typical moves, but after rook E8 and in exchange on the G6, White has no effective continuation of his attack. After queen H7 and king F8, okay, let's create this position, queen H7, king F8, you can see that White has no attacking moves at all. That's why in the game he tried another idea. He played knight h2, trying to bring the knight to the f6 probably. Black played king f8, knight g4. In this position actually Black has quite a lot of moves to play. In the game he played king e7, queen f4 was possible here also. You see the White's deck is not powerful really, and Black has many defensive ideas. Queen h7, rook g8, and White tried the move d5, trying to open the position on the Kingside. And here I'd like you to pay attention on one important aspect. The White's piece is stuck on the Kingside. It often happens when White is trying to attack on the h file. Now his queen on the h7 and rook on the h1 becomes out of game. And that's why, though Black has the king in the center, White has no real way to develop the attack. King f8. After this simple move, Black is threatening rook h8, and a funny situation really happens. It looks like White is an attacker, but now he's in huge trouble. After rook h8, the White's queen is trapped. Also, Black is going just to take the pawn on the d5, and White simply has nothing to do. Perhaps he has to go back, something like queen h3, but of course this doesn't create any problems for Black. Black will play rook h8, and then, for example, after an exchange, he can take the d5 pawn, and you can see that the White's attack failed, and Black got a material advantage. Here is another similar situation. White played bishop h6, trying to exchange this bishop. And of course Black doesn't want to trade the bishop because it is the main defender of the Black's king and of the Black's castling. That's why Black has a typical idea of a positional sacrifice, and he played bishop h8. Maybe you have seen this game before, it's quite a classical example, but I'd like you to take a look at this example from another point of view. Usually people think that Black plays bishop h8 trying to save the bishop and to attack the White's b2 pawn afterwards. Of course this is true, but mainly Black avoids an exchange trying to protect his king. That's why this is rather a defensive positional sacrifice. And after bishop take and queen take, White played a3. Okay, I'd just like to show you the position like this. After h5, let's say Black will play bishop g7. Of course, it's not necessary for Black, but I just like to create this classical situation. After that, you can see that White has no attacking ideas at all. White can double rooks there on the h file. It will not give anything for White. And the Black's bishop g7 is the great defender, and it's enough for Black to have only this one piece in order to provide a safety position of his king. Now Black can develop his own counterattack on the queen side on the b file. Okay, let's see what happened in the game. In the game White played badly, and Black won the game pretty soon. After bishop d3, c5, knight takes, and after knight a4 and bishop d7, the Black's position is already winning. White has no way to protect the b2 pawn and the a4 knight. In the game they played in this variation, queen h6, f4, knight takes f4. Well, actually, black has a lot of winning continuations here. Rook d2, bishop takes, bishop c3, and black won the game. Rook b1. Okay, in this example we just have seen that the black's bishop on the g-zone is an extremely important piece, and that's why one of the typical ideas is a positional sacrifice of an exchange, trying to save this bishop and avoid an exchange. Okay, now let's draw the conclusions. First of all, an attack on the h-file is not so effective. It takes a lot of time to prepare it, and usually it doesn't bring any serious results. This brings us to the next conclusion: black should draw the counterattack. As we already know, white has to spend about 10 moves in order to develop this typical attack on the h-file. This gives black a lot of time to develop a successful counterattack. So don't afraid of this attack and don't waste time on making defensive moves. Start a counterattack and you have great chances that your counterattack will be faster. Next conclusion: the white's piece is stuck on the kingside. When white concentrates all his heavy pieces on the h-file, it gives black a great advantage in the center and on the queen side. This is one more argument for starting a counterattack. And the next conclusion: the g7 bishop is the key of the black's defense. Also, this gives black a typical idea of a positional sacrifice of an exchange in order to save the g7 bishop. This bishop covers all the weak squares around the black's king, and it's enough just to have this one bishop on the g7, and this will protect your king enough against all the heavy pieces of your opponent. These are all the main conclusions concerning this topic. Perhaps they look simple, but many chess players don't understand them. A lot of players still believe that an attack on the h-file is easily winning. Now you can use this misunderstanding in order to gain more victories. Have a nice day, goodbye.